Now, for the remainder of this course, we're going to use this old 1911 Fiat supercar, the Fiat S76, also known as the Beast of Turin or the Beast of Torino, and this is just an awesome vehicle. Anyway, we're going to use this as the basis for the rest of our training. We're going to use this to learn how to model, how to sculpt, paint, UV, setup. We're going to do some particle stuff. We're going to do all kinds of cool things with this model once we've built it. And it's going to be a ton of fun. And by the way, I definitely recommend looking this up online. The first time I saw this car was actually in a design history class that I was taking for my master's. And man, this is just, first of all, the main reason it caught my eye is just because the proportions are just so bonkers. It is huge. And really, I don't know, it just looks like a spaceship, right? And it's 1911. And it looks like this. And so I just figured it would be really cool to do a model of the throwback of the original car. And then later on, I'm going to do a model of a futuristic version of it as if this existed in 2111 or something like that. So should be a really fun project. I'm excited about it. Definitely Google search it. And also, if you're that kind of a geek, look at the specs because it's going to blow your brain. This thing in 1911. Just get your head around that. We're in like a black and white Thomas Edison film, and this thing is going, 180 miles an hour with 300 horsepower, with an open cockpit and no seatbelts. Okay, so basically, it's the coolest thing ever. Also, 4 cylinders, 28 liters. These cylinders are the size of your head. They are awesome. Okay, anyway, so let's actually jump in here and set up our file for the basic modeling exercise here because we want to do a little bit of modeling. I'm going to close up that document and just start from a just completely blank document. Start from scratch, okay? First thing we want is to bring in some useful reference data. Let's go to Add Item right above our items list here. And the very top thing in that list will be Backdrop Item, and that's what we want. Now, I actually need 3 of these, so let's hit Control-D to duplicate that one we just created. And this one, I'm going to change its projection type from front to right. And then I'll duplicate it again, and I'm going to change this one from front, or from right, to top. Okay, and we'll just rename these just so that we know what they are. We'll call this one our front, and I will rename this one right. And this is done using just the traditional slow double-click method to rename. Then I'll select all of those and hit Control-G on the keyboard to create a group locator. Now, you could also right-click and go down to Parent to Group Locator, and that will do the same thing. And we'll just rename this our Backdrop Items. Now, you're going to notice when I name things, I use letters, numbers, and underscores only. That's not absolutely essential. You can get away with using spaces and some certain special characters, but I don't recommend it just as a habit. Just a habitual thing. You should always name files and items using letters, numbers, underscores only. It'll just make life a lot easier for you when you're scripting and running commands and things like that. Okay? So we now have a folder containing all of these backdrop items so that we can hide and show all 3 of them at once very easily. Let's select the top one. And I want to look at these a little bit more closely. I don't necessarily need all of the palettes on my screen, however. I'd like to clean things up a little. So here is a quick little tip for you about the Moto UI. If I select an item here, you'll notice the properties are in the Properties panel down below. We have this nice tabbed viewport. Now, if I mouse over the corner of it, you'll see that this is actually what's known as a frame in Moto. When we mouse over it, we get the orange border surrounding said frame. If I right-click that corner, I get an option for copy. Now, don't do detach or duplicate. Use copy instead, and that's going to create a duplicate of that original form, but it's going to drop it into its very own window, floating around. And now I can maximize my viewport, and all we have is this one thing out here, so we can very much clean up what we're working on. All in one place. So now I'm going to grab the top one here to start with. Let's go to the backdrop properties, which of course would have been visible over here on the right. If you want to prefer to use those, that's fine. So I'll click on the image drop down, and you would have expected maybe to get either the option to load an image or even a file open dialog, but then no, you get this preset browser. That's because in Modo, we need to load a clip or an image before we can actually use it. That's so that it's very easy to reuse those in different parts of our scene if we need to. So if we head up to Add Clip, we can then load an image. I'll then choose the top shot image, hit Open, and let's zoom back so we can see it there. Looks good. If I click on that item again, once again, I'm in Items Selection mode. That's number 5 on the keyboard. It's going to allow me to click that image again, and you'll see that it is now loaded, and each successive clip that we load is going to then appear in this browser. So in the future, if you want to grab one of those images again, they're always right here, very easy to get to. You never have to use the File Open dialog again. Okay, so let's deselect that, and I'll go to this side view. Let's go to Load Image again. This time we'll choose the side shot. Open that up. And finally, one more. Let's select the front view. And go to Add Clip, Load Image. We'll grab the front shot. And that looks good. Now, all of these are in here, but they're kind of mixed up. They're not all facing the correct direction. So let's select all of these at once. Using the middle mouse, I'm just going to lasso select. And by the way, you don't have to encompass the entire thing. It'll lasso select items that it crosses as well, so you don't have to go all the way around. Then we'll head over to the transparency section. Let's set that up to like 85%, something pretty high. So now if we go to individual views, it's going to be pretty easy to see these. But they are rotated the wrong way. So let's start with the top one. I think we want the front to be facing Z forward in this case. So I'm going to select this guy, hit E for rotate, or of course, if you were using your standard toolbars, it is over in the basic tools under rotate right there. It works the same way, whichever you want. And then holding the control key, I'll drag the Y-axis rotator to snap that to 90 degrees exactly. If you look over in the properties for this item, you'll notice that the Y rotation is now 90 degrees exactly. So rather than using the move tool, you could of course change this rotation manually if you prefer, just so you're aware of that. Also, if we select this one, it is backwards as well, the side view. We could rotate it, or if you prefer, just head over to the properties and click on flip, and that will flip that around for you just as easily. So with that, we should be all set. If I go to the right view, I have a right view facing the correct direction. We can go to front view. We've got a front view, and top view has a top view, and those all line up more or less the right way. The only problem is they're not one-to-one scale yet, so that's the next thing that we need to change. Let's go to the front view in this case, and I have included a box in each of these, and that box just so happens to be a 500 millimeter cube. So I have myself a reference for how big these need to be. So I'm going to head up to the View menu and down to Ruler Tool. Now this is one of the few tools in Modo that is not easily available through the graphic UI. You kind of have to access it through the menu bar. So just remember, View, Ruler Tool. We'll drop a ruler in the center of your workspace. I'm going to drag the cyan handles so that they go all the way to either end of this. And it looks like this box is currently, in our current scale, 1.057 meters. Okay? So just kind of commit that number to memory, 1.057. That's how big it is. Now, to scale this stuff down to the appropriate size, there's no magic button to do that, I'm afraid. But the math is pretty easy to do. If you're not a math person, you have trouble remembering math, don't worry about it. Just write down this little formula, and this will make it very easy for you to do things like this in the future. Okay, so remember, 1.057, that's 1,057 millimeters. Okay, so I'm going to hit Escape to drop the ruler tool, Escape to drop any selections. Make sure we're in Items Selection mode using number 5 on the keyboard, or of course using the Items Selection mode here in the Modo Modes bar. I'll lasso select to get all 3 of these guys at once. And we want to change their scale. So to change all 3 scale properties at once, we're going to go over to the right-hand side of this gang. We call this a gang of subcontrols. We're going to go to the right-hand side and click the little circle once so that it becomes an equal sign. Now, any change we make to the top one, say 150, we'll make the same change to all three down below. Now, if you click it twice, it's going to become an infinity sign. Click it again, it becomes a plus sign, and again, it goes back to normal. If you do that, just keep on clicking until you get back around to the equal sign. That's the one you want for now. Okay? So, under the scale, what we want is, here's your formula. Okay? You can write down this formula if you like. It's 100% times the size that you want it to be over the size that it currently is. All right? So one more time, size that you want it to be is 500 millimeters, or just 500 in our case, over the size that it currently is. That's 1,070, did I say 57? 1,057 millimeters. Hit enter. They all scale to 47.3%. Let's go to a front view. We can activate our ruler tool to double check that using View Ruler. Move this up to right about here. Just dragging that ruler around. And it looks like that is pretty much perfect. There is 500 millimeters, and our box pretty accurately represents that. So now we have scaled our images to the correct size. So, okay, now that we have these, one more thing. Let's actually just move these off to the side a little bit. I'll select the front view one. I'm going to move it back so that it's behind the side view. Take the side view, move it back so that it's at least further over than the side of the car, and take the top view and move that down too. Let's move that down below the other two. So now we have a space to work that is not occluded in any way by our background images, but we can still see them when we go to each of the orthographic views. Okay, so one more thing here. I'm going to bring back all of my panels here. Now, there's one more little thing I would like to do before we get started, and that is to make it so that I can't accidentally select these and change them later in the future. In fact, I would like it if I couldn't select these at all in the viewport, so that everything I'm selecting will only be the geometry itself, and then I can come to the items list if I want to select one of these or hide it or something. And the way to do that is to select them, and then let's head over to the Setup tab briefly. Now, the Setup tab has lots of things that other tabs do not, especially pertaining to the way that we interact with the scene. It's meant for rigging up complicated assemblies of things so that they're easy to work with. So if I select these items, over here in the Properties area of the Setup tab, if I expand that out, you'll see that there is an Assembly tab all the way over on the right. Click on that tab. And the very top item is Select. Let's go down to No, and then click off, and now I can no longer select these in the viewport. Now I can select them from the items list. I just can't select them in the viewport, which makes them a little bit less dangerous. I can't accidentally select these and move them. It's also just convenient, so I don't have them getting in my way when I'm working. Okay, so from here, go ahead and save your work, and then in the next video, we'll actually go ahead and start modeling a little bit.